Well, hello. I'm here today with Dr. Connie Casebolt. She's from Greenville, South Carolina. And I've been so interested in talking to you because one of your specialties, and it's kind of sad that it has to be a specialty, but I have firsthand experience with it, is Lyme disease. It's the most insidious condition. People who have Lyme disease can't seem to get a handle on it. Tell me about your treatment of Lyme disease.
Okay, so as you know, it's a condition that can have so many manifestations. In fact, it's been said that Lyme disease will mimic anything. So it can present as fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, POT syndrome, which is where you get this postural hypotension. You stand up and you faint because you don't have enough blood supply to your brain. Neurologic conditions, so numbness and aching and burning, depression, brain fog. The list of symptoms just goes on and on. And so many times people go to their doctors and they don't get a diagnosis. And they run a standard panel of labs and the labs come back normal. And so typically it's years from the time where they probably acquired this before they get properly diagnosed. So it's important to run a full panel of labs. And the standard, what we call the Western blot, if it comes back positive, it's helpful. If it comes back negative, then you still don't know because it's likely, it could be a false negative. So many of the Lyme tests are negative to begin with. The other confounding variable is that Lyme travels with co-infections. So there's other viruses and bacteria that will infect a person at the same time. So with all that aside, we take a holistic approach. So whenever you're dealing with someone with Lyme, you can't just focus on the Lyme because all the other factors in the body are going to affect. So it's kind of like when you're teaching or coaching a sport, you've always got to go back to the fundamentals. So what are the fundamentals of good health? First of all, we've got to make sure there's good gut health. So we take a history, we find out, what are you eating? Do you have bloating? Are you eliminating properly? So we want to make sure that that's all on track. Now, we typically will find things like dysbiosis, which is an improper collection of bacteria in the gut. We also will find leaky gut, where the way I explain it to my patients is your gut cells are supposed to be tight together like this. We call that tight junctions. Leaky gut is big gaping holes. And so bad things that shouldn't be absorbed end up getting into your system. So we assess for that. Can
I ask you one question about leaky gut? So would leaky gut be a result of the toxic burden in that particular body in the GI tract, essentially in easy speak, eating holes through the barrier wall of the GI tract?
Yes.
Out.
Yes. So leaky gut, it's also called increased intestinal permeability.
Yeah.
We call it leaky gut.
Yeah.
The things that cause leaky gut, gluten can cause leaky gut. So even people who don't have celiac disease, they still could have a gluten sensitivity.
Yes.
So gluten can cause leaky gut. Something called lipopolysaccharides, which are the byproduct of bad bacteria in the gut. These gram-negative bacteria, they're called. They can cause leaky gut. So again, the collection of bacteria in your gut has profound implications for health. So we do have some protocols that we use to, we can test for leaky gut, and then we put people on certain dietary regimen and supplements, and it takes some time, but the leaky gut can get healed. That's the good news. So we're going to assess for gut function and talk about diet, and we particularly want to make sure they're not eating sugar, processed or junk foods. Of course, junk food is an oxymoron, because if it's food, it shouldn't be junk. So we're going to get their diet corrected, make sure they have some healthy fats, but not the bad fats, some good sources of protein, and eating from what I call the rainbow palette of the spectrum of fruits and vegetables. All of those different brightly colored fruits and vegetables, they have these marvelous little, what we call phytonutrients or phytochemicals that contribute to health. So you always want to make sure that the diet is optimal and that the gut function is good. Okay, so that's number one.
Okay. And when you talk about diet, I presume you also mean organic food?
Yes, whenever possible. There's so much data showing that when you eat organic, you're avoiding those pesticides and all those chemicals. And especially whenever you're eating animal foods, if you choose to eat animal foods, they have got to be organic and raised in the correct manner. So you don't want cows, you don't want to eat beef where the cow's been fed corn. It's not a natural food. So yes, organic and as clean as possible. So we're going to assess the gut function, make sure the diet is optimal. I was just reading a funny story, in fact, right before I came on, written by someone who deals with Lyme. And he said his patient had a bagel syndrome, meaning that whenever he ate a bagel, he got really sick. He was kind of addicted to bagels. And so, but he would just flare when he would eat these wheat products. So again, gluten is a huge thing for people, unfortunately, because we all know it's tasty.
Gluten, I mean, it's almost like an epidemic. It's interesting what you say about the bagel, because I was speaking one day with Dr. Jonathan Wright, and he had a whole family that was gluten intolerant. And he found that on Mondays, the whole family would have a huge flare and they weren't eating any gluten. And what he finally figured out was that they were Catholic and they were receiving Holy Communion on Sunday, just a little wafer of gluten like that, and the whole family would get sick every Monday. I thought it was interesting detective work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could tell. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I have a lot of gluten stories myself.
Yeah.
One gal she had a rash that cleared up, and she was doing fine, and the rash came back, and they figured out it was wheat in her shampoo. That made the rash come back. So, yeah, gluten, there's a whole spectrum of gluten sensitivities that are out there, and we have to be aware of that. And in fact, another quick story, a lady started working in a bakery, and she was breathing in the flour. She wasn't eating the products in the bakery, but the flour was in the air, and it made her sick. So again, and not everyone's sensitive to gluten, but it's something to consider.
Right. But for the sake of the viewership right now, when you listen to Dr. Casebolt, she's rattling off all this information about gluten and food allergies and Lyme disease, and we're going to get into fibromyalgia. This is not common for doctors to understand, and that's why you have to find a doctor such as Dr. Casebolt, who's gone out, your credentials are very impressive, who's gone out on a limb to re-educate what you didn't learn first time around in medical school. So I just wanted the viewership to understand what an advantage it is when your body language is talking to you with bloating and constipation and even skin rashes, right? Rosacea and things like that. Going to a doctor who hasn't chosen to specialize in this arena is like going to a plumber for a heart bypass. So
Yeah.
anyway, I appreciate what you do. So we were talking about Lyme and fibromyalgia, and I interrupted you.
Okay, so after we've sort of had our discussion about gut function and diet, I also do a very extensive battery of tests, just looking for easy things. I'm going to look at inflammation panels, so fibrinogen, CRP, myeloperoxidase. These give me different clues as to what level of inflammation might be present.
What would fibrinogen, it's a hard word to say, indicate to you if you saw that?
If a person has a high fibrinogen level, it's one marker for inflammation. It means, to be exact, it means that their blood has a slightly more tendency to clot. So you don't want blood that's too thick. Okay. So you want to start looking at, and usually it's diet related. So it goes back to that fundamentals. Clean up the diet, and the fibrinogen will usually come down.
Right.
High fibrinogen can be associated with Lyme's, or it can be associated with cancer as well. So you're again looking for underlying causes and then fixing them. And
I would imagine heart disease too, with thick blood.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're also going to look at.
What is the antidote for thick blood? Would that be a natural blood thinner?
So, one thing that's so simple, drink more water. Most people are chronically dehydrated. And so if you have to use a little device on your phone to remind you to drink water, then do it.
How much is enough? in a day?
Well, the rule of thumb is you take your weight in pounds, divide it by 2, and that's the number of ounces per day that you need to drink. So
Okay.
at least 8 ounce glasses for most people.
Yeah.
So yeah, drink more water, clean up your diet. And there's also a supplement called nattokinase. It's one of the supplements. It's derived from soy, but it doesn't have soy associated with it, so it's not anything that someone allergic to soy would be concerned with. But nattokinase will bring down the fibrinogen levels too.
Nice alternative to a pharmaceutical.
Absolutely, completely safe. Yeah. So we also look at vitamin D levels. I find that if a person has any immune system challenge, if their vitamin D levels are low, I cannot help them until we get it back up again. And I have people coming in every day with levels far below 30. And this is where, again, as you mentioned, you want a doctor who's trained in the functional lab values, because if I get a test from LabCorp or Quest or any of the common labs, they're going to say 30 to 100 is fine. Well, 30 is very low in my book. I put my patients between 60 to 100. And that's the level at which their immune system is going to be best. You've got your optimal protection from osteoporosis, heart disease, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, the list goes on and on, even the flu. It's way more effective to keep your vitamin D up and avoid sugar instead of getting the flu shot. So that's what I tell people.
And how many IUs a day of vitamin D3 would you?
Good question. So this is where the recommended daily allowance is woefully inadequate. They recently bumped from 400 to 600, so it's a step in the right direction. What I find, most adults are going to need at least 5,000 a day. So at least 5,000 a day. Now, it is a fat-soluble vitamin, so a person with more body fat, they need higher doses. So we even carry a 50,000 in our office. And if I have a person that's fairly heavy and they're extremely low, I'll put them on 50,000 a day for a few days, and then they can take it once a week. So
is there a problem with taking too much vitamin D3?
I've had other physicians get alarmed when patients that we share, went to them and told them how much D they were taking. In reality, not really. The only theoretical or potential problem that could occur is that your blood calcium level might come up. And so we monitor that. Calcium is part of a common test that we order all the time. So we just keep track of that. And typically, I check people frequently enough. Every now and then I have a level going above 100. They get no symptoms from it. So it's really not a problem. So,
well, when you consider that vitamin D3 supports the most important systems in your body, your brain, your heart, your immune, your
absolutely.
I mean, I personally take 3 times the recommended. I take 15,000, and I'm not forgetting things. So.
Yep. It's important for so many systems. You just can't name them all.
Yeah. And I think as we get older, the most important thing we want is to make sure we take care of our brain. The brain is under attack in today's environment. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I've listened to Dr. I think it's Daniel Amen, or
yes.
I say his name. Our holistic approach is going to always make sure that we keep brain health optimal, because if you don't have your brain, I mean, you don't want that to happen, to lose your cognitive ability.
No. Brain and bones.
That's right. So we're going to check the vitamin D. That's usually a pretty simple fix. Always I look at B12. If B12 is low, it can affect neurotransmitter production, energy production. And so we're going to fix that. We also have a way to look at minerals. And so I look at a person's overall mineral balance, and I want to make sure that they have enough magnesium. Now, here's the interesting thing about Lyme disease. Lyme disease, the organism actually uses up your store of magnesium. So it's almost like a parasite. It steals magnesium from you. And this is one of the reasons people do get achy and fatigued with Lyme disease, because magnesium is part of that Krebs cycle, that citric acid cycle that makes energy. So if you don't have magnesium, you can't make energy.
Well, I agree with you there. My granddaughter has Lyme disease, and I have watched I've watched the horror of this disease. She spent almost a year in a clinic, and it's so ravaged her energy, her ability to think, her anxiety levels. And so I've watched this journey with Lyme disease. That's why I was so interested in talking to you.
Yeah.
But magnesium.
Oh yeah, critical. And of course, and this is where, I tell my patients, don't go to the pharmacy and get the cheap magnesium oxide because you can't absorb it. You've just wasted your money. You can only absorb 5% of that. So you don't want that particular type of magnesium.
So there's magnesium oxide, there's magnesium citrate.
Correct.
And is there a third one?
Yeah, there's actually magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate. Right. And we have one that's a combo of magnesium glycinate and malate. The malate form is really a double whammy because both magnesium and malate are needed to make energy in that citric acid cycle. So when you give the two together, you've just sort of killed two birds with one stone.
Oh, great.
So
one of them is good for elimination, right?
Any kind of magnesium can help with elimination. Yeah. So magnesium and vitamin C, those two nutrients. If you take enough of it, you can move mountains.
Well, life is a flow. That's
right.
Right. It's nothing's working right.
That's right.
So fibromyalgia, does that begin in the gut?
Nobody truly knows. And what's interesting, there's a lot of overlap between what we've talked about with Lyme and fibromyalgia. With fibromyalgia, you ache everywhere. Again, the brain fog. And likely, there are people with fibromyalgia who also have Lyme disease. My little flow chart that I go through is similar to what we just discussed. You've got to fix their nutrition. You've got to fix their gut. You've got to get their magnesium and vitamin D up and their B12. Now, the other big thing we see with fibromyalgia is they're often low thyroid, and they don't know it, and they're often low in other of these sex hormones. So
what are the symptoms of the low thyroid?
So low thyroid is typically you think of it as you can't lose weight, you're exhausted, you're cold, can't generate body heat. So your body temperature might even be less than, say, 96, 97. The brain fog, maybe headaches, hair loss, constipation, big one with hypothyroidism. So there's a lot of overlap, as you can see, with these different syndromes.
And mood also?
Mood, very depressed.
Yeah.
So one of the things that sets us apart here, we are going to check all the tests for thyroid that are relevant. I find so many doctors are only checking a TSH,
right,
maybe a free T4. And of course, with thyroid, the T4, let's just say you're either making it or you're getting it from Synthroid, which is a medication for thyroid. You have to transform that T4 into T3 before it's effective. And so many doctors aren't checking that T3. Neither are they checking a reverse T3, which can be thought of as sort of a fake T3. Mm-hmm. So we check thyroid 6 different ways. We like to brag that we don't miss any cases of low thyroid. We're going to check the TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, and then thyroid antibodies. There's 2 thyroid antibodies because we want to make sure there's no autoimmune attack on the thyroid going on, which would, of course, change our approach. So I just find that when I correctly assess and address thyroid issues, that can be a huge part of addressing fibromyalgia because in many cases, fibromyalgia is really hypothyroidism. So I find that amazing. And then sex hormones.
Yes.
We find, when women go through menopause and they start losing their ovarian production of hormones, that can cause brain fog, achiness, poor sleep. If you don't sleep well, you can't repair.
Yeah.
So I tell people, it's like a child's mobile. If you tweak one part, the whole thing's going to bounce around. So you can't, or even a better illustration, let's say you've got 10 nails in your foot. If your doctor removes 8 nails and leaves 2 in, you're still not going to get better. You're going to take them all out.
Yeah.
So again, this is where you need that comprehensive sort of holistic approach where we're going to cover everything.
When a patient comes to you, do they know, are they educated when they come in, or do they just come in having been to 20 different doctors and they finally find themselves in your office?
Good question. I've got a little bit of both. I have some people who've done exhaustive web searches and they know that I'm the doctor for them because they know there's nobody else in their area. And some patients come in, they have a whole thick file of tests that other functional doctors have done. I had one coming in today with that. She was transferring to me because I'm closer, so I was a closer drive for her. And some just come in because they are truly desperate. They don't really know what I can do or what my background is, but they're desperate. We also do seminars to educate the public. Typically, every other Tuesday, I do a seminar. It's free. And we encourage people to come in that way because at the seminar, I explain what our problems are with healthcare, why what the current system isn't working. And of course, 7 to 10 minutes with your doctor, no doctor can solve a problem in 7 to 10 minutes. It's insane. So we go through problems.
To interrupt you for 1 second, I have a doctor friend in Canada, and with their medical socialized medicine up there, he sees 70 patients a day. And I said, how can you do that? He said, you can't. I said, so how do you treat your patients? He said, I learned to say things like, it's going around. So what is interesting about the kind of medicine, and give me the name of your, the Wellness by Design.
Wellness by Design.
I was so intrigued by that because as you're speaking, there is just a new way to approach health, and that is what you are doing here. So I just wanted to.
And it ends up being the most cost-effective. In fact, quick story, I have a patient coming in who had literally been going to doctor after doctor after doctor. Nobody knew why she was sick. She was on oxygen and a huge list of medications, and she was heavy and couldn't lose weight, and she was in despair. And she finally heard about me, decided to come in, and we're doing all kinds of things. I'm going to talk a little bit later, if we have the time, about the IVs that we offer, because that's an important part for some people. But we put her, I tested her. We found out all the things she was low in, all the things she was toxic in. We put her on a program, a comprehensive program to address everything. And we started her on some very selective IVs because we have some IVs that boost nutrition, boost the immune system, help with detox. Long story short, she is now able to be off her oxygen for long periods of time. She's lost 25 pounds. And she says, my husband even sees me smile. So it's completely changed her quality of life. She has hope for the first time. So yes, you have to have enough time with patients. You have to be able to be comprehensive.
And it's detective work, right?
Yes, it is, which I love because I love doing puzzles. And so I look at each new patient as a brand new puzzle that I have the privilege of solving. And it's fun because when you see those kind of results, it just makes you want to come back to work the next day and do it again with other patients.
Well, I'm sure, and especially with male and female hormones. I mean, once you get that balanced, people are kissing you all the time.
Yes. I mean, when you get those hormones restored, you restore relationships.
Yeah.
Marriages sort of wake up and go, whoa. Yeah. So yeah, it's very rewarding to do that. But typically, back to the fibromyalgia, usually if I can address the diet, the supplements, the thyroid, and the hormones, 80 to 90% of the time, I'm going to have them at least 80% better, and they're happy with that. Mm-hmm. And then if we need to go a step further, then we start talking about some of our IVs. But usually at 80% of the time, I can do it with just that.
So you balance hormones, bioidentical, I'm sure we are speaking.
Yes.
You have detox protocols with IV drips, which would be individualized for that patient, right?
Yes. So we have several IVs that we do that are very helpful. Vitamin C is a tremendous detoxifier. We use vitamin C for people with quality of life issues, sometimes Lyme disease, although Lyme disease we use more ozone. And if we have time, we'll talk about the ozone. We also use Myers cocktail. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'd like you to explain that to the viewing audience.
Okay, so Myers cocktail was actually invented, if you will, by a Dr. Myers who was in Baltimore. And he's been deceased for a number of years. But Dr. Alan Gaby is probably the one who kind of made it famous. He inherited a lot of Dr. Myers' patients, and they came in saying, I'd like this IV. And so he had to find out what it was. And so he's kind of publicized that because he's a prolific author and speaker. And so now doctors that are in functional medicine, we all do the Myers cocktail. So it's basically a combination of some vitamin C, some magnesium, some B vitamins, and I also add a few other trace minerals such as zinc and selenium because I find that they're typically low in people. The advantage of using an IV is if you have someone with gut function that may be compromised, maybe they can't absorb like we want them to, you can put these nutrients in IV and the cells just soak it up like a sponge. They've got instant access to all these nutrients. And sometimes we see some amazing results with energy right away. The other interesting thing, magnesium is an interesting mineral because you require magnesium to absorb magnesium. So if you're super low in magnesium, you're kind of stuck. You don't have the energy to absorb what you need to from the gut. And so getting it in a Myers is wonderful. Magnesium in an IV is also wonderful for cutting a migraine headache, for hypertension, because magnesium is a relaxing mineral. So any type of condition where there might be spasm, like constipation or asthma or headache or hypertension, magnesium is going to be your go-to mineral. So giving it IV, you just sort of bypass any gut issues and you get this quick response.
So you're dealing on two levels is what I'm picking up. One is if you have a condition, if it's lupus or fibromyalgia or MS or Lyme disease. But on the other hand, in your Wellness by Design, you are essentially making them well, and it's the new concept of a patient going to the doctor to remain well, right?
Correct. Yeah. And there's go ahead.
It's just such a wonderful concept. It makes so much sense. On one side, you're treating the negative conditions. On the other side, your practice is about quality of life and restoring quality of life.
Yes.
Something in my books I'm always trying to get my reader to understand of this is the new way. It's so exciting that you can entertain living a life without drugs.
Absolutely. Yeah. My goal is this is what I teach people, because we incorporate a curriculum with people. We have a health coach, a full-time health coach, and we actually conduct classes here. So we're always trying to teach people so that they have an ongoing understanding of this is what you need to do to stay healthy. And it's pretty basic, it's diet, it's detox, it's proper sleep, it's maintaining adequate hormones. It's not rocket science. But it works, and those same principles help keep you healthy.
Right, and it takes belief, and it takes compliancy. So, you have to do it. But this is what you just said is the life that I live. I don't have the aches and pains of my peers. I don't have trouble sleeping. I don't take sleeping pills. My body's working at optimum because of the way I eat. And I just find this kind of medicine that those of you who've chosen to specialize in this so exciting, and it makes so much sense, much more so than here's my problem, here's the pill for the problem.
Right.
This is like such a fast half hour. We've been talking for a half hour. Is there anything that we missed? Because I want the viewing audience to really get a sense of who you are and what it is that you are able to provide for them.
So I guess the wrap up would be, if anybody's out there that would like to have permanent weight loss, not a fad weight loss that's going to come back, because 98% of people regain their weight within a year. But if anybody wants permanent weight loss, they want to manage the aging process. They don't want the aches and pains that you get as you get older. Maybe they want to get off medications. Maybe they want to get rid of aches and pains or chronic illness. They need to seek out a center like this where we have this comprehensive, holistic approach that's going to work instead of just putting Band-Aids on, which is what drugs are. So that's my message to folks, find a place where you can get this holistic thing that works for you. And then you're not doomed to chronic illness.
Well, congratulations on putting together such a comprehensive program. Like I said, it is the life that I live, and I've never looked back. Every day is a great one. And I hope those who are watching this interview, if you live in the Greenville, South Carolina area, or if it's within driving distance, it's worth going. It's the new kind of medicine, and it's very, very exciting. I thank you so much for your time, Dr. Casebolt.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really a pleasure. Really, really. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.